The year was 1974, and NBC's weekend reruns of The Tonight Show were the crown jewels of the network. This was largely credited to the big dick Jimmy Fallon of the time.
Here's Johnny!
Johnny Carson, whose charm and sarcastic wit guaranteed the network a large percentage of their viewership. So when Carson approached the studio executives with a petition to air the reruns on weeknights, so as to get the weekends off, they saw it as more of an ultimatum and had no choice but to comply. But this would ultimately leave the weekends and a huge portion of their pockets spotless. And so they had to think big and quick in order to fill that void. The network would spend over a year developing a high-concept variety show by Lorne Michaels featuring comedy sketches and live musical performances. And by October 11, 1975, NBC's Saturday Night Live was ready to air, featuring its now legendary cast dubbed as the Not Ready for Primetime Players. And today, we are going to look at how the original cast of this pop culture staple have aged so far. But before we get to the then and now portion of this video, kindly subscribe to our channel and leave a like if you enjoy the video. Now, back to business.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
First on our list is Dan.
How the fuck do you pronounce this?
Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd was a series regular on the sketch show throughout its first 4 seasons. He originally joined the show as a cast member in 1975 at the age of 23, as part of the Not Ready for Primetime Players crew. But as the show progressed, he was added onto the writing team of the show, making him a writer and actor until his departure from the show in 1979. After securing a respectable resume from his tenure on SNL, he was able to break into Hollywood and star in many critical acclaimed roles, and even secured an Academy Award nomination from his supporting role in Driving Miss Daisy. He has also secured his spot in cult film history for his work on the movies adapted from his SNL skits, and has also been a part of the Ghostbusters franchise as a writer and actor. He has even reprised his character from the franchise this year at the age of 72. Up next on our list is John Belushi. In 1975, Chevy Chase would recommend John Belushi to SNL showrunner Lorne Michaels, who, after auditioning the then 26-year-old future star, would cast him right on the spot for the first season of the show. He would go on to become the most popular cast member on the show due to his various characters, leading many to see him as an artist. But what Michaels and the cast members knew, but others didn't, was that Belushi was a tortured artist. Of course, that would be a nicer way of saying the man had a serious drug problem that would go on to affect his personal and professional life. In fact, throughout his tenure on the show, he would go on to be dismissed and rehired several times, as he was still the people's choice. But this roller coaster for him would eventually end at the age of 33, when Kathy Smith would dose the comedian with a lethal cocktail of smack and blow that would ultimately end his life. Next up, we have Chevy Chase. It might be hard to believe this with his recent asshole allegations coming to light, but back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Chevy was almost regarded as America's darling. At only 32, the comedian was the breakout star of the first season of SNL and would go on to write and star in it for another season, but ultimately left after the second season. So after receiving 2 gold-plated recognitions for his work on the show from the Emmys, he found it easy to establish himself as a leading man and even became critics' favorite comedian, with many even citing him as a suitable replacement for Johnny Carson. The bootlicking would eventually come to a halt after his controversial antics on the show Community would slow down his career. Nowadays, no one is eager to cast the 81-year-old in their pictures. Coming in hot, we have the first dame on our list, Jane Curtin. At just 28, Jane Curtin rose to prominence after she was cast onto the show. Her deadpan style of comedy would secure her an audience and a spot on the original Not Ready for Primetime Players, cast till the 1980 season, where she opted out. After her time on the show, she would venture into television and would find success, as even at the age of 77, her name is still a favorite at the Emmy Awards. At number 5, we have an integral part of SNL history, Garrett Morris. Garrett Morris was part of the original cast, and at the age of 38, he became the first black cast member of the sketch comedy program. He showcased his comedic chops on the show for 5 seasons and enjoyed the remainder of the century in a couple of recurring roles in high-profile shows, such as The Jamie Foxx Show. He had a resurgence on television the latter decade when he starred in the CBS hit show, Two Broke Girls. And now, at the age of 87, the comedian has an impressive filmography and a Hollywood Walk of Fame star under his belt. Next up, we have the first chameleon on the show, Gilda Radner. At just 29, Gilda Radner was the first performer to be cast on the show. She gained wide notoriety for her parody characters on the show whom she created. In fact, in '79, she took these characters to the stage for her highly successful one-woman Broadway show. After the show, Radner had already cemented herself as an iconic figure in American comedy. But unfortunately, tragedy would strike at the end of the '80s decade. At just 42, Gilda Radner would pass away from ovarian cancer and making a widower out of Willy Wonka. I guess Billy Joel might have been onto something when he claimed only the good die young. And finally, we have Lorraine Newman. Lorraine Newman was also special in her own right, as she was the only one who ever worked with Lorne Michaels prior to SNL. A year before Saturday Night Live, Newman was in a Lorne Michaels production and seemed to have left an impression on the man because a year later, after they worked together, he invited back the 23-year-old comedian to be part of the cast of his new show, and the rest is basically history. Today, the 72-year-old is a mother of 2, one of the most sought-after voice actors working today, and has a 37-year-old sobriety chip to top it all off. What a woman. If you've stayed this long enough, we appreciate the support and hope that you can be part of our community by hitting that subscribe button. Hopefully, it won't be long enough till we meet again. But in the meantime,
take care of yourself.